If someone told you doing this one thing would help you get fit, build more confidence, cultivate stronger relationships, save money, and have more time and energy towards creating your dream life, and not to mention, on top of all of this, it doesn't cost any money. And you don't actually have to start anything, you just have to stop. If you had the opportunity, would you take it? A couple weekends ago, I was celebrating a friend's birthday at a social function, which goes out saying involved alcohol. And I was catching up with someone from college when he asked me, "Do you not drink anymore?" And I suppose the fact that I didn't have a plastic red cup in my hand and wasn't partaking in rage cage or shots likely indicated that fact. And when I told him that I'd quit drinking alcohol about a year ago, he was genuinely surprised. He told me how much respect he has for me, in part because he could never envision himself ever quitting. And while I appreciate the sentiment, I can't help but be confused and disappointed at the same time. Not by him, but by society. Why does choosing to not drink have to be something that is both taboo and seemingly put on a pedestal at the same time? Some people think you're weird for not drinking. Others think it takes some unworldly level of discipline to choose to not drink, to resist peer pressure. And honestly, neither are true. And the more I think about it, it's not the fact that I don't drink alcohol that's respectful to him. It's the fact that I just choose to be myself, to willingly and intentionally not fit in with everyone else, particularly at a point in our lives, in an environment, and in a society where drinking is more the norm rather than the exception. Apparently, I've been living under a rock because I had no idea that Sober October is a thing. It's when, during the month of October, people try to either cut back or completely stop their alcohol consumption for 31 days. Also, I don't know who picked October because it's pretty sick on their part to pick a month in which the literal last day of the month is Halloween, which, let's be real, most adults out there are not trick-or-treating anymore. But if you are, honestly, all the more power to you. And don't you think it's kind of odd that we have a month where we literally try and reduce our consumption of something as if we know that in excessive quantities it's not healthy for us? I mean, after all, it's not like we have a month in which people are trying to pick up healthy habits. Wait, that's January. And we all know how January goes for most people.
New Year's resolution, drink less. Oh, and quit smoking. Oh. And keep New Year's resolutions.
So all this being said, there's gotta be some pretty compelling evidence or reasons why people drink so much alcohol to begin with. And while I could give you my own reasons for why I used to drink, or some random explanations I found on Google, instead, I'm gonna ask you to do so. Take out your phone or a piece of paper, pause the video, and just take 5 to 10 minutes to really sit down with yourself and answer the question, why do I drink alcohol? And try to dig in a bit. Go a few layers deeper. Don't just stop at, it's fun, or it makes me feel good. Ask yourself, what do I enjoy about it? Is it the act itself, or is it the socialization aspect? Ask yourself, what does feeling good even mean to begin with? Why does drinking alcohol make me feel that way? And while I can't reasonably expect or force any of you to actually sit down and reflect on that question, after all, it's your own life, make your own decisions. What I am going to do is encourage each and every one of you to just take some time for yourselves, to try and understand yourself just that much more. Could you imagine if I was just drinking like a Budweiser or a Natty Ice off camera? But it's just a diet root beer. But now that you're back and have your answers in hand, let's have a conversation. But first, and I know I said I wouldn't, but I thought I'd share some pretty interesting results from a survey asking 528 American adults, keyword adults, why they drink wine. And yes, wine is just one specific type of alcohol, but in this case, we're just gonna use it as proxy. 44% of adults surveyed said they drink at least a couple of glasses of wine each week, with that number only increasing with age. But at the same time, they don't define what a couple of glasses really is, or what the standard unit of volume is. Because let's be honest, some adults out there have a pretty heavy hand when it comes to pouring alcohol. I'm looking at you. You'll see that 63% of adults drink wine for the taste and 41% because it pairs well with food. Not my palate, but reasonable enough. But the two main takeaways that I want to call out from the survey are that 47% of adults said they drink wine to de-stress, and another 33% said they drink wine because it makes them happy. Let's just sit with those 2 points for a moment. How many of you can relate? And it may not be the act of drinking alcohol itself that helps them de-stress or makes them happy, but rather being able to do so socially with others. And perhaps that's the real underlying reason why people can't imagine, much less actually stop drinking alcohol, because they're so wired to, in the short term, look for someone or something else to help them de-stress or feel happy. Whereas in reality, the only sustainable path for stress management and long-term happiness is to look inward. From my observation, as is the case in certain romantic relationships, people just seem to have a pretty unhealthy and codependent relationship with alcohol. Whatever your list of reasons for drinking alcohol may be, I very likely had many of the same reasons. And as some of you might have experienced just now, similarly, I never took a moment, much less 5 to 10 minutes, to really sit down with myself and ask the question, why do I really drink alcohol? And if I had, who knows? Maybe I would have gone down some rabbit hole, chosen sobriety, quit my job, and started a YouTube channel earlier. And when it comes to my decision to stop drinking alcohol, I didn't really have an aha moment or consciously sit myself down and say, Dennis, you gotta stop drinking. You've got a problem. What? What, dude? It honestly just sort of happened. But as I reflect back on the past year, as I reflect on where and who I am in life today, there's a few reasons that stand out to me as to why I continue to choose to not drink alcohol. As I've talked about in some of my other videos, I just genuinely don't enjoy or value the types of interactions that people my age are typically having when alcohol is involved. Again, it's just my preference. The combination of blaring music, surface level conversations, and being pressured to take disgusting shots or drink a vile concoction after a game of Rage Cage just really isn't my cup of tea. Instead, I enjoy and greatly value meaningful conversation and connection. I'd rather grab coffee and a pastry, go to a park, or grab a casual meal and really sit down and try to understand you for who you are. And all these activities are honestly better suited for the daytime, which probably explains why I absolutely relish getting in bed by 10 or 11 on a Friday or Saturday night so I can wake up early and enjoy my day. I find it interesting when people talk about their drunk selves. You know, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I was drunk last night, or my friend was drunk and they took my phone. As if that person isn't them. As if it's a person that only comes out on the weekends when there's a bit of alcohol coursing through their veins. And I'll be the first to admit that I was the exact same way when I used to drink frequently. But once I started asking myself, what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of person would I look up to? And started aligning my decisions in the present to be that person, I started to realize that I don't really need something else to just be myself. Kind of crazy thought. And for many, I recognize that just being yourself is way easier said than done. After all, as human beings, we are wired for social connection and belonging, and to try and go against that instinctual nature to try and go against all of the societal pressure that we face our entire lives, day in, day out, to fit in with the others can just feel like an uphill battle at times. The most important reason, forget enjoyment, forget values, forget knowing myself, I can't stand the taste. Like, I hate it. And it seems like most people I talk to say the same thing, which makes me wonder all the more, why do we drink so much alcohol? When I used to drink, the only alcohol I could stand was either a super fruity cocktail where I'm not even drinking alcohol at that point, or a cider, because ciders taste like apple juice and I'm a sucker for apple juice. But at that point and at that price, I'd rather just have a cookie or a pastry or both. The past year of being sober has unsurprisingly lined up with some pretty significant internal shifts I've had to make, all of which together represent a commitment to start living my version of the ideal life and to being the person I aspire to be. And in order to create and live that version of the ideal life, to be the person I aspire to be, I had to make some exchanges. I know myself and how I function well enough at this point to recognize that I have the most available energy in the mornings. As such, I try and optimize for that energy. So that means waking up early so that I can get my most important work for the day out of the way, whether it's a workout or a creative project. And having that awareness and knowledge in hand, it literally makes no sense for me to wake up physically unwell and feeling like shit after a night of drinking. Because how you end your days ultimately dictates how you start them, and how you feel physically will dictate how you feel mentally. And when I'm doing my creative work, I really need to be able to tune into myself to hear my inner voice, which is a bit difficult, and even that's an understatement when your head is pounding with a migraine and your body physically aches from being hungover from the night before, as if you got in the ring with Mike Tyson for a round, which, let's be honest, that's giving ourselves too much credit. A round is generous. My relationships are one of, if not the most important area of my life, and how I show up in these relationships is a core part of my identity, and honestly, what makes me me. And as I've talked about before, particularly in my last video, how you show up for yourself will dictate how you show up for others. And when it comes to showing up for myself and for those I care about in my life, I'm not gonna show up hungover, sleep deprived, and so on. That's just incredibly disrespectful in my book. Saying all of this, alcohol, I know we have a lot of history together, a lot of ups and downs, and please believe me when I say this, but it's not you, it's me. I'm not the same person I was when we met, and for that reason, it wouldn't be fair to you or myself if we got back together. I'm sure I could make up some hypothetical situation, pull some numbers out of a hat to illustrate how much money you'll save, how much time and energy you'll get back, or maybe even talk about how you'll improve your liver function and level up your confidence. And if none of that works, then maybe I could pull out some statistics or spew some scary facts about the long-term effects that drinking can have on your health. But as I can imagine many of you are, I was just as aware of the benefits and downsides associated with reducing or not reducing my alcohol consumption, though maybe just not actively thinking about it. But I honestly don't think knowing that information will be enough to get anyone to reasonably want to cut back or completely stop their consumption of alcohol. I mean, I definitely didn't, and it's still not the reason why I choose not to drink. Ultimately, we put up with the downsides of drinking and ignore the benefits of not drinking because we simply don't value either enough over what alcohol does provide, whether it's stress management or social connection. So instead, we need to think about how we can reframe our perspective towards drinking, or quite honestly, any other sort of unhealthy behaviors or habits that we carry with us. So how do we do it? We typically exchange an input, whether it be time, energy, or money, for something else, sort of like we do with alcohol. So if that's the case, let's treat alcohol as the input. When we make an exchange, we do so because we reasonably believe that we'll derive some sort of benefit of greater value, whether measurable or immeasurable, than the input we're giving up. So in that case, it's not necessarily about giving up alcohol, but rather replacing it with something of greater value. Whether it be your physical or mental health, a side hustle, whatever it may be, you have to determine for yourself what is of greater value than what alcohol provides, what truly matters to you in life. And that's a question that no one in the world can answer but you. In my case, as I've sort of alluded to in this video, I exchanged alcohol for the opportunity, not even the guarantee, to live my version of the ideal life, to be the person I aspire to be. And if you ask me, so far, the exchange has been pretty lopsided in my favor. There's a bunch of content out there stating how habit formation or dissolution is most effective when grounded in one's identity. If you're interested, check out Atomic Habits by James Clear. And if not, merely ask yourself the question, what kind of person do I want to be, or what kind of person would I look up to? Write down your answers objectively and truthfully, because lying to yourself would be disrespectful. And then follow up that answer by asking yourself, does drinking alcohol align with this person who I would want to be or look up to? When it comes to implementing healthy habits or letting go of unhealthy ones, we tend to think of the situation as black or white. We either are or we aren't. We fixate on the goal rather than the process. But that's a surefire way to get frustrated and quit altogether. For as long as habits take to form, they take just as, if not longer, to let go of. So instead, when it comes to something like drinking, focus on and take each situation as it comes. Ask yourself the question, can I enjoy this activity or spend time with this person sober? If the answer is yes, then just don't drink. But if the answer is no, you might want to ask yourself some follow-up questions. Why do I need alcohol to enjoy this activity? Do I genuinely enjoy this activity to begin with? Or if you're at a social function and you feel pressure to drink, ask yourself, do I have meaningful relationships with these people? Do I even want to be here to begin with? At the end of the day, I'm not gonna sit here and try to compel you to completely stop drinking alcohol. After all, it's your life and yours alone to live, but I do want the best for you, and I'm just trying to challenge you to think for yourself a bit. And while you don't need to completely stop drinking alcohol, I will encourage you to try and build a healthier and more sustainable relationship with drinking, or quite honestly, any behavior or habit you may have that in excess could be considered unhealthy. Because ultimately, there's a level at which you're dependent on something and have an unhealthy relationship, and a level at which you're able to enjoy and appreciate something in moderation and have a healthy and sustainable relationship. So while this video may seem to be solely about drinking alcohol and cutting back your consumption, honestly, it's really not. It's more so about building a stronger relationship with your true self and living your life in a manner that is authentic to you. And when you put it that way, there's honestly no need to wait until sober October to reconsider your alcohol consumption, or until January to decide for yourself that you want to make some meaningful shifts in your life. Because ultimately, you have the power to change your life at any time, at any moment. You just have to want it enough for yourself and no one else. So if you had the opportunity to change your life in this very moment, why not take it? Need some apple juice.
It's so nice to meet you. It's so nice to meet you, bro.